Imagine waking up and stepping outside your front door, and within 60 seconds, you can't breathe. Not because you're sick, not because something is wrong with you, but because the air itself feels like the inside of an oven. The ground beneath your feet is hot enough to fry an egg. The sky above you offers no cloud, no shade, no mercy. Just a blinding white sun that has been burning since before your great-great-great-grandparents were born. Now imagine that this isn't a disaster. This isn't a warning. This is just Tuesday. Welcome to Saudi Arabia. This is a place that, by every scientific measurement, by every rule of human survival, should not be home to millions of people. And yet, here they are. Cities, families, children playing, markets full of food, ancient roads carved through stone. A civilization that didn't just survive the heat. It was built by it, shaped by it, defined by it, for thousands of years before air conditioning ever existed. Let me give you a number, just one to start. 54 degrees Celsius. That is 129 degrees Fahrenheit. That is the kind of temperature that scientists and researchers classify as beyond normal human tolerance. That is the temperature that has been recorded in the streets of Mecca, one of the most populated, most visited, and most spiritually significant cities on the entire planet, where every single year, over 2 million people willingly travel from across the world to stand in the open air and pray. Think about that for a moment. 2 million people, voluntarily, under a sun that could kill you. That is not madness. That is devotion. That is history. That is a culture so ancient. So deeply rooted in this burning land that the heat itself has become part of the story. Saudi Arabia is not just a country. It is one of the oldest continuously inhabited regions on Earth. Humans have been living here for over 2.5 million years, long before the pyramids of Egypt were built, long before Rome was a thought, long before the first stone was laid in Athens. People were walking across this desert, raising families here, building trade routes here, telling stories around fires here, under skies so clear and so vast that you can see the Milky Way stretch from one horizon to the other. This is a land where the desert itself has a name. The Rub al-Khali, the empty quarter, is the largest continuous sand desert on the face of the earth. It covers an area bigger than France, and it is not empty at all. It never truly was. The Bedouin people have crossed it for centuries, reading the wind and the stars the way we read road signs. Tribes who knew every dune, every hidden water source, every path through a landscape that looks like it belongs on another planet. And speaking of another planet, the interior of Saudi Arabia regularly sees average summer temperatures of 45 degrees Celsius, with spikes well beyond 50 degrees that are, in the words of climate scientists, not uncommon. Not rare events, not record-breaking emergencies, just summer, just the weather, just another afternoon. And yet, people live here. People thrive here. Cities have risen from this sand that are now among the most modern, most architecturally stunning, and most rapidly developing in the entire world. Ancient kingdoms stood here long before the oil was discovered. The Nabataean civilization carved an entire city into rose-red rock faces over 2,000 years ago, in what is now northwest Saudi Arabia. Al-Ula, Hegra, names that are only now reaching the world's attention, but places that have existed through centuries of silence, waiting to be seen. This is what this video is about. Not just the heat, not just the shock of a temperature number on your screen that makes you put down your cold drink and stare. This is about the people who looked at one of the harshest environments on the planet and said, "This is home." This is about the ancient roads that caravans traveled, the kingdoms that rose and fell and left their marks in stone, the religious history that shaped over 1 billion lives across the globe, and the extraordinary modern transformation of a nation that is reinventing itself for the world to see. Because here is the truth that most people never get told about Saudi Arabia. The heat is just the beginning of the story. What was built here, despite the heat, or perhaps because of it, is one of the most remarkable chapters in the entire history of human civilization. And today, you and I, we're going to walk through all of it. So, take a long sip of water, turn on your fan, make yourself comfortable. Because we are about to step into the fire. Before we talk about the heat, before we talk about the oil, before we talk about anything modern, we need to go back, way back, because Saudi Arabia is not a young story. It is one of the oldest stories on this planet, and most of the world has barely read the first page. The Arabian Peninsula has been home to human beings for over 2.5 million years. Let that number sit with you. 2.5 million years of footprints in this sand. Long before any empire you learned about in school, before Greece, before Rome, before Egypt was Egypt, people were here, surviving in this heat, building lives, building kingdoms, building roads that the whole ancient world depended on. In the northwest corner of what is now Saudi Arabia, tucked inside a valley of towering sandstone mountains, lies a place called Al-Ula. This ancient oasis valley, surrounded by dramatic sandstone mountains and rock formations carved by millennia of wind and sand, preserves over 7,000 years of continuous human civilization. 7,000 years. In one valley, layer upon layer of kingdoms, each one building on the bones of the last. The first great civilization to call this valley home were the Dadanites, and later, the Lionites. Located in the Al-Ula Valley, Dadan was one of the most developed first millennium BCE cities in the Arabian Peninsula. The Dadanites grew wealthy by controlling the incense route, the ancient world's equivalent of a high-speed trade highway. They were masters of water management. In a land where it almost never rains, they built aqueducts, channels, and reservoirs, engineering systems that allowed entire cities to breathe and grow in the middle of a desert that should have swallowed them whole. And high up on the red rock cliffs above their city, they carved tombs guarded by stone lions, fierce, proud, eternal. Much of the Dadanite social structure and their sudden decline remains a puzzle. They rose, they thrived, and then, like so many great civilizations, they disappeared into time, leaving only their stones and their lions to speak for them. Then came the Nabataeans. The Nabataeans were desert-dwelling nomads turned master merchants, controlling the incense and spice trade routes through Arabia and Jordan to the Mediterranean, Egypt, Syria, and Mesopotamia. These were people who understood the desert the way a sailor understands the sea, not as an enemy to be feared, but as a road to be read. Camel caravans loaded with frankincense, myrrh, spices, silk, and pepper move through their network like blood through veins. And at the southern end of their kingdom, they built a city unlike anything that had ever existed in this part of the world. They called it Hegra. Hegra thrived in the 1st century AD under the Nabataean people, growing into a major city with dwellings, walls, more than 130 wells, irrigation channels, and reservoirs to collect rainwater. But what the Nabataeans are most remembered for, what makes Hegra one of the most breathtaking sights on Earth, is what they did with the mountains. They didn't just live beside the rock, they carved into it. The site features more than 110 well-preserved Nabataean tombs carved directly into sandstone outcrops, many adorned with intricate friezes and inscriptions. Eagles, sphinxes, classical columns, all chiseled by hand by human beings with nothing but tools and genius, into the face of ancient stone. Tombs so precise, so ornate, so perfectly preserved, that standing in front of them today feels less like visiting history and more like interrupting it. In 2008, UNESCO proclaimed Hegra a World Heritage Site, becoming Saudi Arabia's first, recognized for its outstanding preservation and historical importance. And yet, most people outside the Arab world have never even heard its name. That changes today. There is a moment, and every traveler who has been to Al-Ula will tell you about this moment. When you come around a bend in the road and the landscape simply stops making sense. You have been driving for hours. The road stretches out in front of you, flat and straight. The kind of road that goes on so long it starts to feel like a hallucination. On either side, golden desert, empty, quiet. The heat shimmers off the asphalt in waves that make the horizon look liquid. You think you know what this place is going to look like. You've seen deserts before. You've seen sand. You think you're prepared. And then the rocks appear. Not small rocks, not boulders. Mountains of sandstone, rising suddenly from the flat earth like they were placed there by something that wasn't human. What unfolds is a desert oasis encircled by the towering sandstone and granite peaks of the northwestern Hijaz, an unforgiving and otherworldly landscape that has sheltered human life for over 200,000 years. The colors are wrong in the best possible way: rust red, deep orange, pale cream, rose gold where the sun hits the rock face at just the right angle. The formations twist and lean and arch over the road, some shaped by millions of years of wind into things that look almost intentional, almost alive. One of the first things that strikes visitors in Al-Ula is Elephant Rock, Jabal AlFil, a natural sandstone formation shaped by centuries of wind and rain. From certain angles, it looks almost impossibly delicate, a massive stone elephant frozen in place. And standing next to it, you realize for the first time just how small you are, not in a frightening way, in a humbling way, in the way that reminds you that this land existed long before you arrived and will exist long after you are gone. The heat hits you the moment you step out of any vehicle. There is no easing into it. It wraps around you immediately, pressing against your skin like a warm blanket that is just slightly too heavy. By noon, the air above the desert floor ripples and dances. The light is so bright it feels solid. You squint even behind sunglasses. Your throat tells you to drink water every few minutes. Not because you feel thirsty, but because your body instinctively knows it is losing moisture faster than usual. And yet, you don't want to go back inside, because what is around you is too extraordinary to look away from. What stands out most about Al-Ula is how seamlessly it blends ancient history with modern infrastructure. You can explore Nabataean tombs carved into sandstone cliffs in the morning and be back at a design-forward cafe or luxury resort by the afternoon. Despite recent development, Al-Ula never feels overdone or artificial. There is something else you notice almost immediately, something that no photograph quite captures: the silence. Out here in the Northwest Desert, away from the roads and the resorts, there is a silence so complete that you can hear your own heartbeat. No wind, no traffic, no voices, just the vast, patient, ancient quiet of a land that has been watching human beings come and go for thousands of years. The landscape is described by those who have walked through it as having a near-continuous spread of 7,000 years of successive civilizations settled in one valley. Civilizations only now being revealed to the world through archaeology. You are not just visiting a place, you are standing inside a library, and every rock face, every carved tomb, every ancient inscription scratched into stone by a hand that lived 2,000 years ago is a page. Standing at the entrance of Hegra, before you have even taken your first step inside, you already understand that this is not a normal place. The tombs are visible from a distance, massive pale gold faces of carved sandstone rising from the desert floor, like monuments that decided to grow out of the earth instead of being built on top of it. And as you get closer, the scale of what the Nabataeans accomplished becomes almost difficult to process. The site stretches across 13.4 kilometers, with 131 monumental rock-cut tombs spread across 4 necropolis areas, many bearing inscribed Nabataean epigraphs carved directly onto their facades. This was not a small community. This was a city, a full, living, breathing city. And what remains of it today is its memory, written in stone. The most iconic of all the tombs here is called Qasr Al-Farid, which translates simply as the Lonely Castle. It stands 22 meters tall and is the most photographed monument at the entire Hegra site. But unlike most of the other tombs, which were carved into the faces of large rock formations, Qasr Al-Farid rises from a single, freestanding boulder in the middle of the desert. 4 stories of classical columns, carved cornices, eagles with spread wings, and decorative friezes, all cut by hand into one isolated rock. And here is the extraordinary detail that nobody tells you until you are standing right in front of it. It was never finished. The top half of the facade, where the masons were still working, remains rough and uncarved. Something happened. Someone stopped, and we do not know why. Mysteries remain, including why some of the tombs were never completed. Questions that continue to fascinate archaeologists today. The tomb inscriptions themselves are one of the most remarkable things about Hegra, and most visitors walk right past them without realizing what they are looking at. These inscriptions are legal texts that record the name of the tomb owner, their role in the community, and burial rites, written in Nabataean script, a variety of Aramaic that later developed into the Arabic script used across the world today. In other words, every time you see the Arabic alphabet, in a text message, on a street sign, in a newspaper, you are looking at the distant descendant of the writing carved onto these tomb walls over 2,000 years ago. The script that runs across your phone screen has its roots right here, in this desert, on these rocks. Internally, the tombs functioned as collective family burial chambers, with multiple graves cut into the walls and floors, added over time across generations, reflecting prolonged and repeated use by the same families. These were not just places of death. They were places of continuity. A family would carve a tomb, bury their first generation, and return again and again, decade after decade, adding graves for children and grandchildren. The stone walls held an entire family's history inside them. Among the thousands of objects recovered from excavations, bronze bracelets, glass bead necklaces, cosmetic tubes, embroidered handkerchiefs, coins from across the ancient world, perhaps the most human discovery is a woman archaeologists have named Hegra. Excavated from one of Hegra's tombs, she is the subject of the world's first reconstruction of a Nabataean woman, now on display at the Hegra Visitor Center. Her tomb inscription reads, "This is the tomb which Hegra, daughter of Wabu, made for herself and for her children and her descendants forever." A woman who built her own tomb, who planned for her own legacy, who left her name in stone for 2,000 years, and whose face we can now finally see. Most visitors to Al-Ula see Hegra and go home. They take their photographs of Qasr Al-Farid, they board the bus back to the visitor center, and they leave thinking they have seen the full picture. But Al-Ula is not one site. It is a valley full of secrets, and the most extraordinary of them are the ones almost nobody talks about. 5 kilometers north of the town, pressed into a canyon between walls of ancient sandstone, is a place called Jabal Ikmah. The name means Wisdom Mountain, and the moment you step into the narrow canyon and look at the rock faces around you, you understand why. What makes Jabal Ikmah truly exceptional are the thousands of ancient inscriptions carved into the cliffs along one of its crevasses. The high concentration of engravings earned it the title of Open Library, but the reason why so many ancient people decided to leave their mark here is still unknown. Think about what that means. For thousands of years, merchants, traders, pilgrims, scholars, soldiers, ordinary people passing through on camel caravans, they arrived at this canyon and they wrote on the walls. Not graffiti, not vandalism, records, messages, prayers, names, evidence that they were here, that they existed, that their lives mattered. Languages represented in the inscriptions include Aramaic, Dadanitic, Safayidic, Thamudic, Mainaic, and Nabataean, all languages that predated and eventually influenced Arabic. Standing in this canyon is like standing inside a library that was written by an entire civilization over the course of 1,000 years. The inscriptions also highlight lesser-known histories within the Arabian Peninsula, particularly the roles of women who appear in the carvings as property owners, agricultural landholders, and participants in religious rituals within Dadanite society. Women who owned land, women who conducted trade, women whose names are recorded here on the walls of a mountain from over 2,500 years ago. Then there is Dadan itself, the ancient walled city that existed before the Nabataeans ever arrived. The walls of sandstone rise like sentinels from the desert floor. Dadan, a stone-hewn city that flourished in the Al-Ula Valley around 800 BCE, served as the capital of the Dadanite and later Lihayonite kingdoms, thriving as a key stop along the frankincense trade routes to Egypt, Mesopotamia, and the Mediterranean. And above this city, carved high into the red rock cliffs, are the Lion Tombs. Niches cut into the stone, each one flanked by a carved lion, fierce and proud, staring outward across the desert. These lions have been watching over this valley for nearly 3,000 years. They are still there. And finally, for those who stay until after dark, there is perhaps the greatest hidden experience Al-Ula has to offer. Away from any road, away from any light source, in the middle of the open desert, the night sky above Saudi Arabia is one of the clearest, most star-filled skies on Earth. The low humidity, the vast distance from any major city, and the pure dry air of the desert combine to create a sky so full of stars that the darkness between them disappears. The Milky Way stretches completely across the sky from horizon to horizon, visible, vivid, and overwhelming. People who have seen it say it changes you, that you come back from the desert understanding in a way you never quite did before, just how vast and ancient and beautiful the universe actually is. Al-Ula does not give its best secrets to the people who rush, it gives them to the people who stay. History is never just about ruins, it is about the people who still live in their shadow. Al-Ula today is a town of roughly 40,000 people, and the moment you step away from the archaeological sites and into the streets, into the markets, the cafes, the narrow shaded lanes of the old town, you begin to understand that this place is not a museum. It is a community, a living, breathing community that has been here for centuries, and whose culture carries the fingerprints of every civilization that ever passed through this valley. The old town of Al-Ula, called ad-deerah in Arabic, is one of the first places where that living culture becomes impossible to ignore. Meticulously revived over recent years, it's here in the main street where visitors feel that they have been transported into an ancient Arabian fairy tale. Cultural celebrations, including the annual Tantora celebration, musical performances, immersive theater, literary events, and parades keep traditions alive year-round. But even beyond the festivals, on an ordinary afternoon, the old town has a quality that is rare in the modern world. The buildings are made of mud brick, the same earthen construction technique used here for over 1,000 years. The walls are thick, which keeps the interiors naturally cool even under a sky that is trying its best to burn everything below it. Walk slowly enough, and an elder might wave you into a doorway and press a small cup of kawa into your hands without a single word of explanation. That is simply what is done here. That is hospitality. The food of this region tells the same story. Food in Saudi Arabia is rarely plated individually. Instead, dishes arrive in the center of the table, meant to be passed, tasted, discussed, and lingered over long after the plates are cleared. The most iconic of all Saudi dishes, kabsa, is a fragrant rice cooked with spices, topped with slow-roasted lamb or chicken, served on a communal platter. You eat it with your right hand if you're doing it properly, shoulder to shoulder with whoever is at the table, because the dish was designed that way. It was designed for gathering. Kabsa symbolizes generosity and communal hospitality, a quiet reminder that food here is meant to connect people, not separate them. Then there is the coffee, kahwa, the traditional Saudi cardamom coffee, pale gold in color, poured from a long-spouted brass dala pot into a small handleless cup, is not merely a drink here, it is a ritual, it is an opening. When a Saudi host pours you kahwa, they are not just offering you a beverage, they are telling you, you are welcome in this place, you are safe, sit down, stay a while. And the Bedouin traditions that have shaped Saudi culture for millennia are not gone. They have adapted, but they have not disappeared. A large portion of Saudi Arabia's original inhabitants were desert nomads known as Bedouin, and they remain a significant and deeply influential part of the indigenous Saudi population. Their poetry, known as Nabataean, is still recited and still composed. Their weaving art, al-Sadu, recognized by UNESCO as an intangible cultural heritage, turns threads of camel hair and sheep's wool into patterns that map desert memory. Each thread tells a story about the desert and the Bedouin life, harsh and beautiful at once, preserved and passed down by Saudi women across generations. This is a culture that was forged by heat and hardship, refined by centuries of trade and encounter with half the ancient world, and shaped by a faith so central to its identity that the two are inseparable. It is a culture that does not always announce itself loudly, but sit quietly enough, accept the coffee, taste the food, listen to the poetry, and it opens itself to you completely. Of all the stories buried in the stones of Al-Ula and Hegra, one stands above the rest for its drama, its mystery, and its lingering questions. It is the story of how the Nabataean civilization, one of the most extraordinary in the ancient world, came to its end, and it begins with a king, a bargain, and the Roman Empire. By the 1st century AD, The Nabataeans were at the height of their power. Their trade network stretched from the frankincense groves of southern Arabia all the way to the ports of the Mediterranean. Their cities of Petra and Hegra were wealthy, sophisticated, and culturally diverse. A civilization described as a cultural sponge, absorbing influences from Greece, Rome, Egypt, and Mesopotamia, yet blending them into a unique identity entirely their own. Their stonemasons were among the finest craftsmen in the ancient world. Their engineers had solved the problem of water in the desert so completely that cities of tens of thousands of people flourished in landscapes where rainfall was almost non-existent. But Rome was growing, and Rome had noticed the Nabataeans. For decades, the two powers had existed in an uneasy relationship. Not quite enemies, not quite equals. The Nabataeans paid tribute. They provided military support when asked. They navigated Roman politics with the same shrewdness they used to navigate desert trade routes. The last Nabataean monarch, Jabal II, struck a deal with the Romans. As long as they did not attack during his lifetime, they would be allowed to move in after he died. A king who negotiated the terms of his own kingdom's end, who bought his people decades of peace in exchange for their future. Whether that was wisdom or surrender depends entirely on who you ask. In 106 AD, during the reign of Roman Emperor Trajan, the last king of the Nabataean kingdom, Jabal II Soter, died, which prompted the official annexation of Nabatea into the Roman Empire. Roman legions marched south. The province of Arabia Petraea was declared, and Hegra, the southernmost city of the Nabataean world, became part of Rome. After the annexation, the city began to decline, gradually losing its strategic importance. Abandoned during the Islamic period, it was only rediscovered in modern times through archaeological studies. But here is what makes this story endlessly fascinating to historians. We still do not know exactly what happened. The Romans claimed the annexation was peaceful, that the Nabataeans simply accepted their fate without resistance. But recent archaeological evidence tells a more complicated story. More recent archaeological discoveries suggest that the end of this culture may not have been as peaceful as the Romans claimed, with evidence that Jabal II Soter had two legitimate heirs who may not have given up the kingdom without a fight. Did the Nabataeans resist? Did families in Hegra watch Roman soldiers march through the gates of their city and decide, quietly, stubbornly, to keep carving their tombs, keep trading their incense, keep writing their inscriptions in a script that Rome would never fully understand? The last dated Nabataean tomb at Hegra was carved around 70 AD. The last Nabataean inscription on any rock in this valley was carved sometime after that. And then, silence. The chisels stopped. The caravans shifted their routes. The city slowly, quietly, emptied. What is left behind is one of the most remarkable acts of preservation in the history of human civilization. The dry climate, the lack of resettlement after the site was abandoned, and the prevailing local beliefs about the locality have all led to the extraordinary state of preservation of Hegra, providing an extensive picture of Nabataean life. Because no one came back to build on top of it, no one quarried the stones for something new. The tombs stood and the desert kept them. And 2,000 years later, here we are, reading the names carved above the doors, looking at the eagles with spread wings, touching the same stone that a mason's hands shaped in the year 1. The Nabataeans didn't write their own history, they buried it, and somehow, that turned out to be the most permanent thing they could have done. There is a window, and it is narrow, when Al-Ula reveals itself completely. When the heat steps back just enough and the light does something to the sandstone that no photograph has ever fully captured. If you want to understand why people travel thousands of miles to stand in a desert, you need to be here at the right hour. That hour is golden hour, and in Al-Ula, it is unlike anything else on Earth. In the morning, it begins around 5:30 in summer and closer to 7 in the cooler winter months. The sky goes from deep blue to pale lavender to a warm amber, and the sandstone formations, which look pale and neutral under the harsh midday sun, suddenly ignite. They turn terracotta, they turn burnt orange, they turn a deep glowing red that seems to come from inside the rock itself, as though the stone is alive and remembering the ancient heat that formed it 300 million years ago. Sunrise paints the dunes and formations in graduated tones from deep burgundy to pale gold, while the shadows thrown by the canyon walls create patterns so precise they look architectural. The single best viewpoint for watching this transformation is the Harit viewpoint, a plateau high on the western mountains above Al-Ula, reached by a winding 30-minute drive up roads that hug the cliff edge. From the viewing point, you can see dozens of miles to the north and south, picking out the Oasis Trail, Old Town, Dadan, and many more sites spread across the valley below. On the right evening, the sky goes pink and orange, and the entire ancient landscape below you is bathed in color simultaneously. People drive up here specifically for this. They sit on the edge of the mountain, feet dangling over a view that stretches to the horizon, and they do not speak. There is simply nothing adequate to say. Then there is Elephant Rock, Jabal AlFil, which earns its greatest beauty at the very end of the day. Sunset is the prime time at Elephant Rock. Arrive at least 45 minutes before to secure a position, as the western face catches the last light beautifully, turning a rich terracotta against a pastel sky. The rock's enormous silhouette, the trunk, the body, the impossible arch of stone that should not be able to hold its own weight, becomes black against a sky that cycles through every shade of gold and pink and purple in the space of 20 minutes. Then it is gone. The desert goes dark quickly. The heat drops so fast it surprises you, and above you, the stars begin. The best season to be here is October through March. During this period, the weather is cooler and ideal for exploring outdoor sites. Temperatures during the day sitting between roughly 10 and 25 degrees Celsius, with cold, clear evenings perfect for stargazing. The summer months are brutal, temperatures climbing above 45, sometimes 50 degrees by early afternoon. But they come with their own advantage. Almost no crowds. You can stand in front of Qasr Al-Farid alone. You can walk the Oasis Trail without another soul in sight. The trade-off is real, but for some travelers, the solitude is worth every degree of heat. And whatever time of year you come, whatever hour, whatever season, there is one experience that belongs to darkness alone. Drive 30 minutes out of town, away from every light source, stop the car, and look up. The Milky Way over the Saudi desert is not a faint suggestion. It is a river of light so thick and so close that you instinctively reach toward it. This is the same sky the Nabataean camel drivers navigated by 2,000 years ago. It has not changed. The stars that guided the incense caravans from Arabia to the Mediterranean are still there, still burning, still pointing the way. All of that beauty, all of those tombs, those canyons, those sunsets, those stars, is completely accessible to you. But like any great destination, Al-Ula rewards a little preparation. Here is everything you need to know before you book your flight. Getting there. Traveling to Al-Ula has become more accessible with a variety of direct international flights from cities like Dubai and Doha, as well as numerous domestic flights from Riyadh, Jeddah, and Dammam, all landing at Al-Ula International Airport. If you are coming from Southeast Asia, from the Philippines, from Indonesia, from Thailand, the most common route is a connecting flight through Riyadh or Jeddah, then a short domestic hop to Al-Ula. The domestic flight from Riyadh takes roughly 2 hours, from Jeddah closer to 1. Alternatively, driving to Al-Ula offers a scenic adventure, with well-maintained roads and affordable car rental available from major cities within Saudi Arabia. From Medina, the drive is roughly 3 hours through open desert. Scenic, surreal, and deeply worth it if you have the time. The visa. This is simpler than most people expect. For eligible nationalities, the Saudi e-visa can be applied for online through the official e-visa platform. It is valid for 1 year, allows multiple entries, and permits stays of up to 90 days per visit. Citizens of many countries, including most of Europe, the United States, the UK, and many Asian nations, qualify. The cost runs between $90 and $130 depending on your nationality and visa type. Apply at least 2 weeks before travel, though same-day approval is sometimes possible. Best time to go: October to March, full stop. Al-Ula experiences a desert climate with extremely hot summers and mild winters. The best time to visit is during the winter months, from November to February, when temperatures are more bearable for outdoor activities. Pack layers. The days are warm and the nights genuinely cold. Comfortable walking shoes are essential. as most of the sites involve significant time on your feet over rocky, uneven terrain. Booking your Hegra tour. This is non-negotiable. You must take an organized tour to see the tombs of Hegra. You cannot simply drive there or take a taxi at any time, and tours must be booked in advance. Tours start from around 95 Saudi riyals for a shared coach experience and go up significantly for private premium options. Book through the official Experience Al-Ula website before you arrive, especially in peak season, as spots fill quickly. Dress code and culture. Saudi Arabia has relaxed its dress code guidelines for tourists significantly in recent years. Women do not need to wear a head cover or an abaya in Al-Ula. Places of worship specifically do require modest dress while visiting. For everyone, loose, breathable, light-colored clothing covering shoulders and knees is both culturally respectful and practically smart in the desert heat. Alcohol is not available anywhere in Saudi Arabia, and it is illegal to bring it into the country. One final practical truth. Give yourself at least 4 to 5 days in Al-Ula. Al-Ula is simply mind-blowing, one of the best desert destinations in the world, but its magic reveals itself slowly to the traveler who is willing to stay and look. One day is enough to see Hegra. It is not enough to feel it. The desert asks for your patience. Give it that, and it gives you everything back. We started this journey with a number, 54 degrees Celsius, the kind of temperature that science says human beings should not be able to survive in, let alone build civilizations in, let alone call home for 2.5 million years. And yet, here we are, standing at the end of a story that is not really an end at all, because the extraordinary thing about Saudi Arabia, about Al-Ula, about Hegra, about the Rub al-Khali and the incense roots and the Nabataean tombs and the lion-guarded cliffs of Dadan, is that none of it is finished. None of it is sealed behind glass in a museum somewhere, labeled and explained and safely put away. It is alive. It is happening right now, under the same relentless sun that burned over the caravans 2,000 years ago. The tombs are still there. The inscriptions are still there. The stone lions are still watching over a valley that has been inhabited continuously since before human memory can reach. And the people who live in this valley today, the families who pour kahwa from brass pots and grow dates in oases that should not exist in a desert, are the living continuation of a story that has never actually stopped being told. What makes Al-Ula one of the most important places on Earth right now is not just what it was, it is what it is becoming. The journey through time, master plan, aligned with Saudi Arabia's Vision 2030, is an ambitious initiative designed to foster harmonious coexistence between nature and humanity, preserve the cultural legacy of Al-Ula for the world, and stimulate sustainable economic growth. 5 distinct districts, each one centered on a different layer of this valley's 7,000-year history. Old Town, Dadan, Jabal Ikmah, the Nabataean horizon, and Hegra itself, the crown jewel, the UNESCO site, the city that was carved into mountains by human hands and then kept intact by time and desert air for 20 centuries. Al-Ula targets 2 million visitors annually and aims to contribute the equivalent of $32 billion to Saudi Arabia's economy by 2035, serving as a model for sustainable heritage tourism development in arid environments, with lessons applicable to historical sites across the world. This is not just a tourism project, it is a statement that the most ancient and the most modern do not have to be enemies, that a country can look at what it has inherited from 7,000 years of human civilization and say, we are going to protect this, we are going to share this, we are going to make sure that the tombs of Hegra and the inscriptions of Jabal Ikmah and the lion carvings of Dadan survive for another 2,000 years. Al-Ula has borne witness to 200,000 years of shared human memory and served as a setting where the arcs of common cultural heritage, the Arabic language, and humanity's relationship with the natural environment evolved and endured. Read that sentence again. 200,000 years. This single valley in the northwest of Saudi Arabia has been part of the human story for longer than most of the other famous ancient sites on Earth have even existed. And we are only in the last decade, beginning to understand what is actually here. That is what makes this place extraordinary, not just its age, not just its beauty, not just the drama of standing in front of a tomb carved 2,000 years ago while the sun tries its absolute best to drive you back inside. It is the fact that there is still so much we do not know. Archaeologists are still excavating. The Kingdoms Institute, a flagship component of the master plan, is designed to be a global hub for archaeological knowledge and research dedicated to the cultures and civilizations that have inhabited this valley for more than 7,000 years. There are still tombs underground that have never been opened, still inscriptions on rock faces that have never been translated, still stories buried in the sand, waiting for the right hands and the right tools, and enough time to bring them into the light. Saudi Arabia is a country that the world spent decades misunderstanding, a place reduced to headlines and oil prices and geopolitics, a place whose extraordinary depth of human history was largely invisible to the outside world, not because it wasn't there, but because no one was looking. People are looking now, and what they are finding, what we have spent the last hour walking through together, is one of the most astonishing accumulations of human civilization, human endurance, and human creativity on the surface of this planet. Built in heat that should have stopped people from building anything at all, preserved by a desert that turned out to be the perfect guardian of stone, and now, finally, shared with the world. I will leave you with this. Somewhere in the valley of Al-Ula, carved into a sandstone cliff 2,000 years ago, a woman named Hinat left her name. She wrote, "This is the tomb which I made for myself, and for my children and my descendants forever." She wanted to be remembered. She wanted the fact of her existence, in this burning, beautiful, impossible land, to matter beyond the years she was given. It did. She is still here. And if you go, when you go, so will you be here. And if you go, when you go, so will you be.